Narrow Road to the Deep North of Basho, Part 6. Part 6 of just the introduction. Part 5, we talked about the frog jumping in the pond. Now, viewed from an artistic point of view, the records of a travel-worn satchel is a great advance over his previous travel sketches. For here, for the first time, an attempt was made to bring prose and haiku into an organic whole. When Basho left on the journey of the records of the weather-exposed skeleton, as I have already pointed out, he was just coming out of the agonizing years of self-scrutiny and was busy finding his identity in nature. In the records of the travel-worn satchel, however, he seems to have succeeded in maintaining a certain artistic distance between himself and his materials. That is why we find in it such beautiful passages as the description of the Suma beach at the end of the book. Superb indeed for its tragi-comic effects. The book is not, however, without its flaws. For one thing, Basho writes too much about the travel. Why he has taken to the road and how he wants to write the travel sketch and so on. These statements, of course, have their own value, especially read as sources of critical and biographical interest. They do not necessarily, however, contribute to the total effect of the work. It seems to me that there is an air of an etude about the records of a travel-worn satchel, and that it should be read as a kind of stepping stone for the subsequent travel sketches. A visit to Sarashina village is the shortest of all travel sketches by Basho. It carries on, however, the wonderful tragicomical effect of the concluding passages of the records of a travel-worn satchel. In its fine polish, and in particular, it is unrivaled and shines forth like a gem. Basho returned from his expedition to Suma and Sarashina in the autumn of 1688, and already in the spring of the following year he left on the third of his major journeys. Shortly before his departure, however, Arano, which is Desolate Wilds, the third of the major anthologies, was published. Basho's poems included in this anthology reveal the unusual depth of mind he had achieved after a year of wandering on the road. For example, poem. How amusing at first, how melancholy it was later to see a cormorant show on the darkening river. Confined to my house by winter weather, I snuggled as before against an old pillar. Basho's main journey brought him Basho's third major journey brought him the narrow road to the deep north, the last of the travel sketches translated in this book. Leaving Edo in the spring of 1689, he spent more than 2.5 years on the road. See map 3. It is significant, I believe, that he had sold his house in Edo prior to his departure, for it means that he did not expect to return from this journey. What is more significant, however, is that he went to the north this time, avoiding the familiar Takeda route. In the imagination of the people, at least, the north was largely an unexplored territory, and it represented for Basho all the mystery there was in the universe. In other words, the narrow road to the deep north was life itself for Basho, and he traveled through it as anyone would travel through a short span of his life here, seeking a vision of eternity in the things that are, by their own very nature, destined to perish. In short, the narrow road to the deep north is Basho's study in eternity, and insofar as he has succeeded in this attempt, is also a monument he has set up against the flow of time. It seems to me that there are two things remarkable about the narrow road to the deep north. One is variety. Each locality, including the little unknown places Basho visited in passing, is portrayed with a distinctive character of its own, so that it is hardly an exaggeration to say that Basho was in possession of a magical power to enter into the spirit of place. Even the people he met on the road are given characters, each different from the others, so that they leave enduring impressions on the imagination of the reader. Furthermore, we often find in reading The Narrow Road to the Deep North themes and subjects of his previous travel sketches reoccurring, modified to fit a new pattern, of course, but used to create that enormous variety which alone can give the work an illusion of being as large as the universe, as infinite as time itself. The other remarkable thing about the narrow road to the deep north is its unity. To use Basho's own classification, variety being a temporary, changeable element, the yuko, is in the substance jitsu of the work. Unity, on the other hand, is the permanent, unchangeable element existing in the essence, kyo, of the work. In other words, unity is invisible on the surface, but it is the hidden vital force that shapes the work into a meaningful whole. In the narrow road to the north, we often find that even place names are made to contribute to the total effect. Indeed, the whole structure of the work is so determined as to meet the demands of unity. Take the major events of the journey, for example. They are arranged not simply linearly according to chronological sequence, but also circularly according to time or another sort, as is demonstrated in the following table, where the events on the first half of the circle must be related to the opposing events on the right half of the circle. This is of course a simplification, and the work as a whole does not present neat regularity. Nevertheless, anyone who reads the work with care will not fail to notice the tremendous effort Basho makes to achieve unity through variety. Scholars have pointed out that in his attempt to achieve unity, Basho took such liberty as to change the natural course of events and even invent fictitious events. The result is a supreme work of art, where unity dominates without destroying variety. Just one more thing need be mentioned. about the narrow road to the deep north, and his preceding travel sketches, as I have already pointed out, Basho failed to maintain an adequate balance between prose and haiku, making prose subservient to haiku and haiku isolated from prose. In the present travel sketch, however, Basho has mastered the art of writing haben so completely that prose and haiku illuminate each other like two mirrors held up facing each other. This is something no one before him was able to achieve, and for this reason the narrow road to the deep north is counted as one of the classics of Japanese literature. Basho traveled the great arc of the northern routes, Oshikado and Okirikudo, in 6 months, arriving in Ogaki in the autumn of 1689. This is where the record of the narrow road to the deep north breaks off. Basho, however, did not return to Edo till the winter of 1691. He spent this 2-year period traveling to a great deal in the vicinity of his native place, making short but happy sojourns at the houses of his disciples. Among such houses, Genjuan, Vision Inhabited House, and Munyan, the House of Anonymity, both situated not far from Lake Biwa. Hakushiksha, the House of Fallen Persimmons in the suburbs of Kyoto, should be mentioned. Of the last, Basho wrote as follows. The retreat of my disciple Kyorei is in the suburbs of Kyoto, among the bamboo thickets of Sumosaga, not far from either Mount Arashimara and the Kyaka River. It is an ideal place for meditation, for it is hushed in silence. Such is the laziness of my friend Kyorei that his windows are covered with tall grass growing rank in the garden. Its roofs are buried under the branches of overgrown persimmon trees. The house has developed a number of leaks, and the long rain of May has made straw mats and paper screens terribly moldy, so that it is difficult to find a place to lie down. Ironically, the sun reaching into the house is the gift with which the master of the house welcomes his guest. I wrote, Home. Long rain of May, I saw on the clay wall a square mark of writing paper torn recently off. Basho wrote an equally beautiful essay on the Vision Inhabited House, and Saga Diary was also a product of his stay at Rakushika. That's, I believe, the end of part. Gosh, is it 6 now?